We're good.
Okay, so the first question is, what are your concerns about kids moving to e-learning?
I think my big concern is not necessarily for those that are more advanced or the gifted kids, but the kids that struggle, that need that person there to explain things and to them, and give them different ways to learn, because we all learn in different ways. And then of course my other thing is, it's not even about the learning aspect, but the social interaction for some of the kids that really need that just aren't getting that positive interaction at home.
Mm-hmm. So the second question is, do you think that teachers are prepared for e-learning?
I would say most of them are probably not. However, I think that unfortunately, last half of March, April, and May, beginning of June, helped prepare us for things, so that this year was maybe a little bit better. And of course, even with the administration being able to figure out how they're going to do it. But I think for the most part, most people are not. They keep teaching us more about technology and different resources and things that we can use, which, obviously 5 years ago, I would have said definitely not. I would say that for the most part, people are not necessarily trained and ready for it.
Mm-hmm. That's actually really obvious, like learning from the teachers too. Like
yes. Yeah.
What do you think are some of the biggest struggles that teachers are going to have with moving to e-learning?
Well, I think that most teachers have a toolbox of lesson plans and activities and objectives that they want to try to always get across, and they're so used to doing it in person that they have to now either recreate the wheel or go out and just spend a lot of time researching and finding how to do this when it's kind of under the gun, so to say. In other words, you have to have this lesson ready by next week or by tomorrow or whatever, their planning process is. And so I think that just either taking lessons that they've had that have been successful and figuring out how to do that through e-learning, or just recreating a new way of getting that information across to the students.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you think is a little exciting about e-learning?
Well, I always like a change and challenge, and it depends what kind of person you are. I think that people are finding that maybe working from home has other benefits, where if you've got a down time of 10 minutes or something, you can just quickly go do this, throw a load of laundry in, or those type of things. But as far as the education goes, the advantage would be for the students to maybe go at their own pace if they're allowed to go ahead, and not all programs are they allowed to go ahead. Mm-hmm. For in this school here, you can't go ahead, because if you would decide to come back, they want you on the same lesson. Or if they're keeping at a certain pace in the classroom, and then you have to be quarantined, and then you come back, they just want you to be on that same level and lesson. But that would be a clear advantage if they could work ahead. Some, again, just that's the way they learn. So that's an advantage for them. I see an advantage in that I think it's making teachers collaborate better, more, even not within their building, but just from what I've seen on groups that I belong to on Twitter for my profession, and Facebook and other things. they're collaborating, trying to work for the best, for the good of the kids, the students.
Yeah. What do you think would be some of the most important skills that teachers are going to need to learn when dealing with different types of kids through e-learning?
Most important skills are going to be, I think, an organizational, that it's not just about having your lessons organized, but making sure you're reaching out to all the kids. I think they have to be able to explain things in different ways. If you don't get the concept by this explanation, let me give you a different example, things of that nature. So I think along with organization would come the idea that you are willing to reach out and look for help or ask for help. You're willing to try new things, because there's a lot of teachers who get set in their ways and don't want to try new things. And I think you have to go outside your comfort zone to make yourself better. And this is something new, so we've got to get better at it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the different challenges that students are going through, especially in like the GILLIT community?
I think that some of them are having a hard time grasping that they have to be, since they're home, they get to be doing whatever they want, but they have to be disciplined enough to be there when they have to be accountable for classes. I think just simply the fact that there are so many families that cannot be home with their kids, and so they don't have that structure of, you're going to work from this time to this time, you have to be on this Zoom call, you have to be on that Google Meet, you have to be here or there, you have to get this much work done. And I feel for those parents and I feel for those kids, because some jobs don't allow them to be home. So I think for that reason, it's difficult on the kids to make that adjustment. Or when they're home, they're used to playing their video games, or they're used to doing this or that. I think for them, as I've mentioned before, just the method of learning, they like that interaction. They like to be recognized by the teacher or students. They like to even have their own classmates help them learn sometimes, especially when they're working in groups or they're trying to achieve things at a certain level. That's why we do different types of activities in the classroom, is to get them to learn in different methods. So I think that they're going to struggle with that. And it goes all the way out to, are they getting food? Are they getting, what they need for their mind and bodies, as well as for the learning?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about how much kids complain about not liking school, but then when something like this happens, they realize how much they like to be in that social environment.
Yes, they end up missing it. And I'm not sure enough students, especially March, April, and May, abided by the quarantine, and so they were still with friends. But those that weren't, they missed that social interaction. Yeah.
So my next question is, how do you develop a good rapport with students through online learning?
Well, I think you need to find a way to reach out to them, even beyond the structured class time or Zoom meetings or things of that nature. I think you need to find a way to, if you are sensing that they're struggling, send them a quick email or something that just, can lift them up. If you need to reach out to a parent so that they can help as well, or at least know that this is some of your concerns. If it's possible to get small groups, to come on for an extra Zoom meeting so that you can give them all extra time to learn, or like I said, use a different approach. Those are things that I think you have to do as well. If you can send materials home, in other words, hard copies are not something that we're doing now like we were in March, April, and May, but if there's something that could help them, I think you have to find a way to reach them and get all those different areas of their life, their health and wellness, and not just health related, but that emotional as well as physical, as well as mental, as well as just even social and things like that.
Yeah. Last question. How do you think teachers can deal with misbehaviors while still being online?
That's a tough one. And in a small community, every so often having a student struggle, I might have been lucky enough that I would run into them and just say, hey, realize that this is what needs to be done. This is, how it's going to help you, and explain. And, calling them out, I don't know. That's not me as far as in front of the whole group and things like that. Again, I think you have to take that time later on to follow up, see what is the issue, because a lot of times it may be something else that's totally irrelevant to the learning. It may be some other issue that they're dealing with. I've always been one that would rather take care of it myself than send them to the principal or the, counselor or something. And you don't have those right now necessarily. Not that you can't keep them informed and they can reach out. And I think that telling parents good things instead of just always calling to say, hey, I'm struggling with your student, your child right now. Those are things that are preventative as well. But as far as if they're having a discipline issue, I guess we just have to, I guess there's a time where they need to just, sometimes they have to step out of a physical classroom. Sometimes they need to step off of the computer and, regroup and come back when they're ready. And that doesn't mean that you can't send them a message and just ask what's going on and things like to get some feedback.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had for questions. So.
All right. I'm gonna